Hey guys, welcome back for another episode of Not the Girl Next Door. I'm your host, Meg Reynolds, and we are in for a very big treat today because this guest walked in the studio and goes, boy, is the tea piping hot. So she is a badass artist here in Nashville, Tennessee. I am so excited and lucky that she agreed to come on the show. Her name is Lou Ridley, and she's apparently Rocco is also her biggest fan. So Lou, welcome to Not the Girl Next Door. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
I am so excited that you are here. And so for the people who aren't familiar with you and your music, can you just kind of give them a quick
little something?
I'm on one today. A quick little...
Okay. So is Rocco.
Rocco's got the zoomies because he's so excited you're here. Just a quick little intro into who you are, what you're about, and all of the badassness that you bring.
Sure. So I am a country artist in Nashville, Tennessee.
Oh, we have to get the zoomies now. Okay. Lay down.
It's up to you, Rocco. What do you want to do?
Lay down.
He's like, no, this is the most exciting day of my life.
He's actually being annoying.
It's okay. It's all right. I like you. You just relax. I'm a country artist in Nashville, Tennessee, and a lot of my music centers around religious trauma and social justice. And I just like to kind of push every boundary that I can because I think it's fun.
It is fun. And so for the people who, obviously when you make statements like that, especially in a town like Nashville where it's, we're still in the Bible Belt.
Yeah.
I'm sure you get a lot of hate, unfortunately. Talk to me a little bit about just how you stay true to yourself and how, you found your voice. Because I think that's probably where a lot of people, especially creatives, Rocco, especially creatives struggle is not only finding their voice, but staying true to it with so much, outside noise going on.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't get that much hate. Sometimes when things go viral on TikTok, I'll get the incels that have a lot to say. But I think for me, when I started in music, I tried to be everyone but myself, and it wasn't very fun. And of course I did because I'm a woman and everyone had an idea about who I should be. But I just sort of hit a wall where I was like, if I'm going to do anything in life, I'm just going to do it as authentically as I can because at the end of the day, we're all just going to die anyway. And also, too, nowadays, when people are inauthentic, they might have they could have a moment of success, but there's no longevity because I think fans are smart now. And when people are dabbling in things they don't belong in, people sniff it out.
Yeah, I say that all the time. I think one of our first conversations was really just talking about the personal branding thing. Yeah. And you and I had a really good conversation about how long it took me to build my brand and myself up because it's a lot of getting to know myself.
Yeah.
And I think, especially in the terms of music, I think a lot of people talk about, well, what happened to artist development? But in a sense of it's more of artists are doing it themselves now. And it's a duality thing, right? Because it's yes, what happened to artist development, but also it's a beautiful thing that artists can develop themselves and get noticed from that. So talk to me too about just your journey then, because that's at first wonderful that you don't get hate. I am so happy about that.
I mean, I do, but I don't my brain doesn't.
It doesn't compute it.
Yeah.
How,
I don't care.
Do you think there was a moment in your life or career that, made you so steadfast in yourself? How, obviously it was probably not just one moment, but is there something that kind of sticks out in your mind, like a story?
I think so. I started music later in life. I didn't know I could sing until I was in my 20s.
Oh, wow.
And I got really far really fast because I could sing. And I was getting in rooms and I was experiencing, and this was before Me Too and everything. So the industry was very gross. So all the Diddy stuff and all, that was an era where everybody was okay with that stuff.
Yeah, and everyone knew, but no one was calling it out.
And nobody was saying anything. So I had a lot of very bizarre experiences with industry people, and I quit music. And I was like, I don't want to. If I have to do these things that have nothing to do with music to make it in music, I'm not going to do music professionally. I'll just
it's
do
not
it
what
on the
you want
side.
to be a part of.
This is bullshit.
Right.
Because I didn't grow up being told I was going to be a star anyway. So I didn't have an inflated sense of oh, this is my identity. So I was like, well, if you guys are going to be weird, then fuck it. I'm out. And then after my dad died, I took a break, and then I just kind of found my way back to music. But I paid my friend to teach me Logic and like help me build a studio in my house at the time in LA. And I produced Cowgirls Don't Cry myself with my friend Keith. And when I got back into music, I was like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it my way. I'm not going to do it any other way. And so I think it was the experience of like getting in big rooms fast and not being ready for them that I was like, this doesn't feel right. I'm not like, this is not for me. Right. And then coming back to it because I love it and it's what I do. It's what I'm meant to do. But coming back to it from the sense of like, I don't need anybody. I'm going to do this as bare bones as I have to for as long as I have to.
Right.
And I developed myself from there. And when I came back to music, I came to country because that's how I grew up. I grew up in Texas, and I grew up listening to country music. So I think for a while I kind of chased other sonics, running away from myself. But when I came back to it, it was like, yeah, here we are.
And that takes a lot of strength and a strong sense of self to even, walk away from something like that, because in a sense, it's like you were being handed, quote unquote, everything you could have ever wanted, but you trusted yourself enough and had a good enough relationship with yourself to be like, this isn't right. This isn't. Yeah. And that's like a really, really powerful thing. And I think too far often we watch, other, especially child stars, I think is where my mind goes, of the rise and burnout because they don't have that voice and sense of themselves to like know when something doesn't feel right. Even if they do know, they don't know to listen to it.
Right.
And so how, what would you just say to people who are even struggling to listen to themselves and trust themselves? Like, how did you develop that sense of trust with yourself and in your decisions?
I just think what you don't like. I think for everybody is different too. Like some people are okay with sucking a dick to get where they're going. And I think that's, as long as you like it, I love it. I don't care. But my relationship with men has always been such that I don't find myself interested in giving them unnecessary power. I think they already have too much. So I think you know what feels right in your body. You know what feels right in your soul. You do whatever that is. And if something doesn't feel right and people are trying to tell you have to do it anyway, just don't do it.
Yeah.
Like I have done things I didn't want to do, and it's never panned out in such a way that I'm like, well, thank God I did it though, because here I am with XYZ. Anytime it feels misaligned and it feels wrong, it is wrong. Yeah. So just take your shoes off and go stand in the grass and figure out where your boundaries are and then stick to them. Yeah. And don't apologize, especially as a woman or, anyone else really, any minority group. I just think like people are always going to try to tell us what we should and shouldn't accept. And only you can answer that. No one can answer that for you, not your manager, not your parents, not anybody. You have to decide what you want to think about yourself at the end of your life when you lay down.
Yeah, no. And that makes I love the touch grass thing, because I'm always like, I think I just need to go touch grass a little bit.
Yes.
I need to go touch grass. But it's true, because at the end of the day, you need to live with your actions. Yeah. You need to live with the decisions you make. Like, nobody else has to bear those emotions other than you. So if you can't even look, I always say, like, if I can't even look in the mirror at the end of the day and say I love myself and I like myself and I'm a kind person, then I'm doing something wrong. Like, I think far too often we avoid that self-reflection.
Yeah.
And nowadays, and I think that goes to the authenticity thing of people don't know themselves, and it's a really sad thing.
And they deserve to. Like, you're here. You're perfectly created for something really important. Everybody has a purpose. No one's purposeless. No one's whatever. But we get so inundated with stuff all day long that we don't take the time to just go, what is it that I'm here for? And you deserve to do that research and figure that out, because anyone I encounter who's like me and knows why they're here, life just works differently for us. Right. And I want everyone to experience that. And when I've, dated someone or whatever that doesn't know why they're here, there's always contention, there's always hangups, there's always issues, because it's like, what am I doing any of this for? And it's like, just sit the fuck down and take a second and talk to God or the universe or whoever the fuck you want to talk to, and be like, what is it that I'm here for? What is my calling? Because wherever you are, people need you. And you need to remember that we're all a part of a collective. We're not these like individuals just self-serving and jacking ourselves off. We need to find our purpose so that we can all fit like these little puzzle pieces, and we can figure out how to get on the same page as a community, as a human race.
And that's so important too in the relationship sense. Like I remember I said in an episode a while ago that like I'm no longer dating down.
Yeah.
And I don't mean in like a physical sense. Like I'm no longer dating it down in like a mental ambition sense.
Yes.
Because you and I, one of our first conversations, we were trauma dumping on each other, talking about our shitty exes. And I said, you know, he was somebody who he didn't have his purpose figured out. He didn't have friends. He didn't have hobbies. Like I was all he had. And so he was constantly trying to drain me. It's like, I think of that. Did you ever watch Friends growing up? Okay. There's a episode in Friends where they're talking about this book and it's like the wind stealer and he's stealing your wind. And it was like it was a silly metaphor, but at the end of the day, it was a good point of the men who are insecure with themselves are going to try and take you down to their level when they don't have something going for them. And it took me longer than I would have liked to admit to learn that. And it's definitely opened my eyes in the world of dating. But at the same time, I'm so glad because it's allowed me to invest my energy in myself and my friendships, and especially my female friendships.
Yeah.
The best, like they've shown me what love is. They've shown me, you know, not to settle and raised my standards in dating. And I'm sure the people that you've surrounded yourself with have done the exact same thing for you, especially as you're writing this new music about which I've gotten some sneak peeks of it. And it's so good.
Thank you.
I'm so excited for it.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, all of my friends have been like, bitch, you know better. And I, even with this, so I had one significant relationship in my 20s and we were together like 5 or 6 years. I can't even do the math anymore. And then I didn't date for a long time, years. I mean, I casually dated, but I didn't have a partner. Serious. And then I recently just got out of a relationship that was like a year and change long. And I remember when we started dating, when we got past the 3 month of love bombing, everybody was like, is he gonna be able to keep up? And at the time, I'm like, oh my God, yes, he's this and he's that, and he has these dreams.
You're pumping him up.
Oh, I'm like, oh, yes, he can. Yes, he can. And then as time went on, I realized that we're just teamwork. I realized that perhaps not. But all of my friends, my guy friends especially, have just been like, the proof was always painfully there. But I think my own journey in this life, in this iteration of life or this timeline or whatever, is to know when to stop my empathy.
Ooh, that's
like,
good.
Turn it the fuck off, babe.
Talk to me more about that, because I think far too often, especially as women, we, you know, we'll make excuses for men. I'm guilty of this too. I'm like, you know, when it comes to my stuff with my ex, with my stuff with my dad, I'm like, you know, I just can't help but feel sorry for him because he's been through X, Y, and Z. But at the end of the day, like, we should not be apologizing for other people's traumas. We shouldn't be making excuses for other people's traumas. We shouldn't be explaining away their bad behavior through their trauma. They're the one that needs to say, like, hey, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean that. It was coming from this place. I'm going to work on it and I'm going to fix it. Because at the end of the day, an apology without change is just manipulation. Yes. And if they're not even apologizing, like, what are we doing? Yeah.
I think that like with my ex, when I met him, I obviously got brought into the entire story of his past, and he had a rough childhood, and I found kinship in his mom and his little sister very quickly. We all just clicked, and that had never happened before for him. Like, he had an engagement at one point and he was in other relationships, but there was never a closeness with his mom and his sister. Yeah. And it was interesting because I would explain away little flags early on that, looking back, were a sign of something bigger. So I basically got to a point where I was explaining away certain behaviors because I was like, well, but he's got these things going on and he's got these things going on. And if I had actually listened to myself and my intuition, those would have been the red flags that I needed to be like, it doesn't really matter because no one is walking around saying that I can act however because of my life experience. And while my childhood may have been different than his, I've had plenty of trauma as a young adult and an adult. So, and no one's going, well, forgive her for doing this because you know what I'm saying? It's not reciprocated. And I think that the female to male relationships, it's a little like, it's imbalanced. We're constantly like, well, it's just because if he's not getting the help he needs to get and actively working on himself, I don't care why it happened. I don't care anymore. And that took me a long time to get to because in this partnership, I was like everything. It was always an excuse. It was always like, oh my gosh, well, poor guy.
Yeah.
And looking back, he's not going to get the help he needs.
Yeah.
And he's not going to be different and he's not going to change and he's not going to be better. Unless he, I don't know, goes through some dark night of the soul, which for his sake, I hope he does. But our empathy is so valuable and we should be using it in a more worldly sense instead of wasting it on an individual who's too immature and selfish or narcissistic, in my case, to go get help. Real help. Not talk therapy where you lie to yourself and your therapist, but real help.
Oof. That was good. That was good. This is why I love talking to her because she just like no bullshit says how she feels.
I do that.
You do that. And it's one of my favorite things. And I think that's why we clicked so quickly. Do you think when it comes to that relationship, do you think part of why, like first, do you think you fell in love with somebody that didn't really exist? Although I'm not a religious person, I believe that generational trauma is real. And I will continue the narrative and continue to believe that at his core, I think he is good. But I think he's very sick and I think he's carrying a lot of the mistakes of his father. And they're almost like a monster on his back. Yeah. So I don't think it's that it wasn't real in some senses, but I think it was not sustainable. I fell in love with someone who's not sustainable because he has a giant monster on his back. Ooh, okay. See,
it's kind of how I view it.
Because I've never thought about it like that because, you know, we, I think, had similar situations happen in our relationships. And I always say, like, I felt like I got bamboozled and I felt like I fell in love with a person that didn't really exist because all of the values he told me he held and his ideas of the future and just like who he was I never saw that. It was like a mask came off one day. Yeah. And so I always say like, and then I stayed because I was like, well, what happened to this guy that I fell in love with? And like, so I always think of it in the sense of like, I just fell in love with somebody that wasn't real. Yeah. And like, I kept that idea up in my mind and that was why I stayed. But I like the way you put it of like, it wasn't sustainable. Like he wanted to be that person maybe, but I just couldn't.
I think you grow up without a dad, and I think that you see things on TV and in movies, and I think when he's getting to know someone, he does those at first because that's his understanding of masculinity. Ooh, and then as time goes on, and he's supposed to exemplify, like, is that the right word? Exemplify? Yeah, it is. Exemplify real masculinity, which is holding space and being a constant and being safe. He doesn't actually have the toolkit for any of those. But the issue is that when I realized that, I should have taken a step back because there's no world where my love was going to fix anything. But my empathy was like, I'll stay and I'll fix it. And it's like, I think that mental health is so nuanced. So I think that like we can, of course, dwindle it down to like, well, he was just manipulating me the first 3 months and he didn't mean it. But in that time frame, he absolutely meant those things. It's just that only a part of him meant it. And then the monster gets back on their back when things get significant and real. And then the monster starts driving the ship. And if they're not in therapy and doing the right things, the monster just takes over, which is what happened in our relationship. He went from lifting me up and making me feel incredible to what I would say is some form of maybe even jealousy at times, and a lot of putting me down and a lot of making me feel really unsafe, which caused me to behave in ways that aren't ideal. But to me, that's generational trauma driving the ship, and that's his unwillingness to recognize how sick he really is.
Wow. Mic drop. Literal mic drop. That is such a beautiful way to put it. And again, never thought of my past relationship in those ways. So thank you for that. I think that, and I'm sure probably a lot of women may help them find some peace and clarity in their situation. Because I think a lot of women have that thing where they feel like they're like, but what happened? Like you spiral in the sense of thinking, well, what happened? What changed? And you try and hunt for like a single moment. So hopefully maybe that gives them some like peace and clarity.
Yeah. The monster's so much. I don't know when we got into this thought process as women that if we just love something enough, everything will be different. That's so incorrect and invalidating to us, and not the way that it goes. Like our love should be in addition to an already healthy situation. It shouldn't be a fix. And I think when we try to fix somebody and then they don't fix, and then we take that as feedback about ourselves or our value or our worthiness of our love or whatever, then we get in a deep fucking hole. And the whole time your love is more than enough for someone who's not sick. But I think like for me, I'm ready for children. So I think I'm really, really wired to be nurturing, but I have to hold myself accountable. That's not my child. That's a grown ass fucking man. So I need to reserve this empathy for for my connection with other human beings, for whatever I do next, and for my children in the future. This loving something until you like choke it out thing is not what you do in romance. You just don't. It's detrimental. And then it creates a narrative of your value in your mind that's not real. My ex, I guarantee you, did every woman the same way he's done me and will continue to do it over and over and over until he gets help. It has nothing to do with me. It never did. It was always going to end this way because he's not in intensive, immersive therapy.
Damn. Yeah, my mom, something my mom always says is, it's not Build-A-Bear, bitch. You can't fix him.
Yeah,
she goes, it's not Build-A-Bear, bitch.
It's not.
And as women, I think it's like one of those, we know that. We know that. We say that to our friends. You can't change a man. You can't make him the man you want him to be. And then we find a man, we're like, but maybe I can. Yeah. Maybe I could fix him. But I liked what you said too, talking about true masculinity. And I think that's an important conversation to have, especially in a day and age where we're seeing, you know, a lot of rise of like this really incel, red pill bullshit. Yeah. And, you know, talk to me about what your meaning of masculinity is. Cause I think, you know, that's something I've been asked is like, well, how would you define a man? And I don't even know how to put it. It's like, I just know it's not what other men preach.
Right.
But then you also feel like, well, who am I to say what masculinity is? Because I'm a woman. And if they were telling me what a woman is, I would be pissed too. But like, how do you define masculinity? And like, what are the characters, I guess, that you look for in a man to be like, yeah, he's got it together?
I think masculinity is the ability to be a container for femininity. I think I imagine it. I explained this once to my ex when I was trying to help him, but it was like, I imagine that like women are like a stream and we have so many different emotions and we have so much going on all the time. And obviously like with the menstrual phase and everything, we're a million different things at once. We have such a dynamic existence. And I imagine like the man of my dreams is like just a stake in the middle of that stream. And he stays there no matter how strong the water gets or how calm the water is. He's still. And he's like, you go do what you need to do. I'll be right here. My idea of masculinity is a man who understands my come from and doesn't take it personally and is like, okay, I'm going to let you do this right now because I love you. And then when you calm down, we're going to talk about it. It's just, it's a calmness. It's it's like a sureness of self and sort of just like, a beingness, to be a container, to be able to to provide, but not, my ex used to get so triggered when I'd say provide because he thought I meant that he had to pay for everything. And it's not, that's not what I'm saying. It would be so dope if you did, but you need to provide safety.
Yeah.
You need to, if you see me struggling as a man, you should deep in your soul be like, I need to work harder because I need to take care of this person.
Right.
Because for me personally, that's how I am. Like if I see anyone, and I think most women are, if we see anybody struggling, we're like, oh, well, we're going to figure out how to fix this. We're going to help.
Right.
We're going to help. We're going to help. Masculinity to me is seeing that same deficit and calmly handling fucking business.
Yeah.
Like just handle it. Do it.
Yeah.
Don't get in my tornado with me. Stand in the eye of the storm and be a man. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like there's that, none of this weaponized incompetence. Like enough with the, well, how do I help you? I want to help you, but how do I don't want to tell you how to help me. Like use your intelligence. And I think when it comes to the word provider, like I'm somebody who, if I hear a guy be like, yeah, I want to be a provider. That's being a man. I'm like, well, what's your definition of a provider? Let's unpack that, because I think a lot of men, when you put them on the spot like that of what's a provider, their minds automatically go to, well, I'm going to take care of the house. I'm going to take care of the bills. And it's like, that to me is not a provider.
Yeah.
Like you're a bank account at that point.
Yeah.
To me, a provider is you're emotionally intelligent and aware. You're a safe place for me to share because like I tend to gravitate towards an anxious attachment style. The right man I know will bring me into secure attachment and vice versa. Yeah. But like you're a place for me to vent my deepest fears and not feel judged.
Right.
You can tell me your deepest fears and not feel like, I hate the narrative of if I cry in front of my girlfriend, she's going to lose respect for me. Like
my ex cried in front of me a lot, even recently. It may have been manipulation. I'm still on the fence about it, but he would always tell me how he never cried in front of anyone. And like on one of our first dates, he cried, and that was what kept me in it, is
because you thought he was
his essence, who he is without the monster. Is I think, and I told him I saw him recently, and I told him, I said, your heart is my favorite place, and your head is my worst place. Because who you are at your core is, I think, beautiful, but your head and your stuff is so fucking loud, and it keeps you from basking in the ambiance of the most divine woman you're ever going to come across or have the opportunity to love. Nobody is capable of what I'm capable of that you're going to come across again. You only get one divine woman in your lifetime, and it's the universe and God being like, okay, sir, this is, you want to, like, you see all these podcasts and men are talking about how it wasn't until they calmed down and got with one woman that their success exploded and that their life made sense. We are leaders. We are the leaders. So what I need you to do is be a container for what is my leadership. Families should be matriarchal. It's my personal view on it. I know intuitively everything that needs to be done. I know how to do it. I'm just wired that way because I'm a woman. I have a sixth sense that men do not have. And a real man is like, I'm going to step back and I'm going to let her do what she needs to do because I know at the end of this, we both win.
Yeah. Have you ever, when you said that families should be matriarchal, did you ever see the movie My Big Fat Greek Wedding? That's my mom and I's like safe movie. That's like every time I go home, we're watching My Big Fat Greek Wedding. But that just reminded me of the quote where the mom is like, the man may be the head, but the woman is the neck. The woman is the neck, and the woman can turn the head any way she wants. And I think that is a very powerful image, kind of just going off of what you said. And I love your definition of, like, you are just so in yourself. And like this energy is... Like, I'm always at a loss for words every time I talk to Lou because...
You're so sweet. Oh
no, God. But it's
Don't
true.
blow my head up. My ex is going to get so mad.
He can bite me. But it's true because it's just very clear how well you know yourself and how secure you are in yourself. And I think that's what a lot of people aspire to get to, is that secureness in themselves and their views. But you're not an asshole about it. Like, you're not sitting here be like, I'm right, you're wrong, here's why, you can go fuck off. You are truly somebody who like just I enjoy conversing with. So again, thank you for being here. But so talking about, your ex and your religious trauma, how has that influenced this new era of music that you've been teasing and kind of talking about? Obviously, we've talked about working together. Like, what are you hoping people hear and react to about it when they hear it finally?
Before I answer that, I do want to go back and say that although I know myself, and that is very, very true, I lost myself in my last relationship, and I don't want anyone watching to think that knowing yourself means it's unwavering. I think the goal is for it to be unwavering. But even my mom was like, I don't recognize you right now. You're not my strong-willed daughter right now. You're allowing this man to kind of play in your face. And I think it's important to note that even the strongest of women, or like perceivably strong in the right situation, can definitely still falter. And I did. I let him get away with a lot more than you would think I would based on what you know of my personality. So if you are listening and you do the same, don't take that as, oh, I'm not who I think I am. I think some people are just master manipulators. Yeah. So that's worth noting.
No, that is such a good point, because, like I said, I was 22 when my last relationship ended, and almost 23. And like, I lost myself the same way, but I chalk it up to being, I was so young. I still had so much to learn about myself, which is true. But that's a big fear of mine getting into another relationship is, oh my God, am I going to let all this hard work, kind of crumble because I'm in love? And I think, how do I want to word this? Like, putting a pin in my next question, like, how did you kind of start to wake up, I guess, like in a sense of, oh yeah, I have lost myself?
I'm a big energy person. And during the course of our relationship, I noticed that music just kind of came to a screeching halt. Nothing was really happening. I barely had the energy to focus on music. I wasn't feeling inspired. And we had moved his little sister in with us at one point. Still to this day, they live together. But we had moved his little sister in with us because she's going to go to college up here. And I was like, let's just move her in early so she can like start to get her independence and, find herself. And she's 18. And, I was like, oh, this will be perfect. And then she can start school, and eventually his mom will move up here and we'll all be together. And then my family will move here. And so I think that I noticed, to absolutely no fault of his sister, she's a perfect angel, but I noticed that all of my days were wake up, clean, figure out, like, cook. And I just was completely lost in the sauce. And I had a project I was finishing, but I wasn't promoting it. I didn't feel confident to be on TikTok because he didn't make me feel good about myself. And I started to just, the thing that is my calling, the thing that is my purpose, the thing that is weird, the thing that is the most important thing to me in the world, I was like putting on the back burner to cook and clean for him and his sister and to XYZ. Yeah. And I just started to realize that wasn't good. And we had conversations about it, and he would be like, well, how do we help you focus on yourself more? But right after those conversations, he would be so self-absorbed that it just didn't really, nothing ever changed.
Right.
But I also noticed like the bags under my eyes. I wasn't sleeping because something had happened in our relationship that caused me to lose trust in him. He didn't cheat, but other things happened. And I intuitively, I should have gone, this person is not healed. I got to get out of here. And that was like month 4 or 5 of the relationship.
Oh, wow.
And I knew something was wrong. I knew something was wrong based on what I discovered. And I stayed, and I lost myself trying to prove my worth completely.
Do you ever not blame yourself, but sometimes for me, I always beat myself up of like, why didn't I leave sooner? Why did it take me so long? Why did it take so many strikes? And I think as women, we just like, we forgive, like I was saying, until we just hit that breaking point. Do you ever like kind of struggle with those feelings of like, why didn't I just leave? Like, how do you?
No, because I think everything's in perfect order. And I think that something I've always struggled with is feeling like I need to prove my value to people for them to love me. And so I think that this relationship pushed on that insecurity so hard that I had to face myself and talk to my therapist and be like, okay, so I need to like actually figure this out because my next relationship will be my last. And I mean, like he ended up coming home and saying that he didn't want to be in the relationship any longer. And so we broke up. And after we broke up, a month and a half passed, and then he came back again. And even then, my friends have been like, are you upset with yourself that for a period of time you let him back in? But no, because that's the path I needed to take clearly. I needed to let him back in, and I needed to get all of the validation I didn't get the first time, because everything came to light when he came back into my life, and I got a lot of clarity.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have gotten it otherwise. And I don't need it, but I wanted it, and that doesn't matter. And then when this last time it ended, it was such an obvious fumble and mistake on his part that now I ended it this time. And I feel completely resolved in that because what he did was so glaringly disrespectful that it was like, okay, now I'm done. I had to go through this exactly how I had to go through this so that I never, ever, ever accept that behavior from a man again in my life. It had to go this way.
Right.
It just had to.
Yeah. No, and that's such a good point to make. And I think a lot of women, especially myself, can relate to that issue. So back to one more thing I want to touch on before we talk about your music is you talked earlier too of how about especially your guy friends were like very vocal that like, what the fuck are you doing? What is your opinion on male and female friendships? Like you always hear like, oh, guys and girls can't be friends. I don't believe that's true. I think it's so important to have like good guy friends. But like, what do you think of that narrative and your opinions on it?
I mean, he used to say all the time, he would be like, all your guy friends want to hook up with you. And I would be like, I mean, I guess if I like walked in there naked, most of them, unless they're in a relationship, wouldn't say no. But that doesn't mean we can't men fuck hole in the wall. So like, it doesn't mean we can't have a beautiful friendship. And what I'll say about my friendships is that I command respect from the men in my life. So even if they are interested in me, they're never going to put me in a compromised situation because they know better. Yeah. So it's like, I mean, I have a lot of guy friends that are in relationships and I love their girlfriends and I love them. And it's like very normal and not weird. And I think if you're a mature adult, you can have very healthy friendships. But I think when you're young and you're just horny, of course it's hard for men and women to be friends, but I get so much value from my male friendships. But again, I think that's because there's a level of respect there of like very early on in the relationship, I established this is what I'm here for and this is what I'm not here for. And I lay it down for them and then they can either be my friend or not. But I mean, I would say half my friend group is men, and it's not men I've been intimate with. It's not men I plan to be intimate with. It's actually just friends. And I think it's a childish assumption that men and women can't be friends. That's just like child's play to me. I don't find it to be mature, which is why when he would always be like, oh, this guy just wants to sleep with you and this guy wants to sleep with you. I'm like, do you not see how much value I bring to the table? Don't you think that these men benefit from having me in their life so that I can help guide them toward the woman of their dreams, or I can give them feedback when they're dealing with something and they just need a safe place to go? Like, sure, yeah, okay, sex is awesome, but a lot of men don't have safe places. Yeah. And I'm absolutely so nurturing that I think a lot of them are like, at this point, I don't want to lose her as a human being, so I'm not even going to push the envelope because I bring value to the friendship.
I love that. Man, I freaking love that. Because I think I went through a period where I always valued my male friendships. And when I moved to Nashville was missing like those really few close guy friends that I had back home. And now I'm at a place where I've definitely got those guy friends in my life. But there was a time where I felt like, who my guy friends were in front of me. And then when I wasn't in the room was two very different types of men. You know, you had the ones that were like bolstering and, you know, talking degradingly about women. And then in front of me, it's like completely vice versa. And it took me a long time, same thing, talking about relationships, to like accept that, you know, they can, at their core, I love them, but I don't know if I necessarily need them in my life. And so that was a hard realization. But now like the guy friends that I do have absolutely also raised my standards of dating, not just like how my girlfriends have, like my guy friends have as well. Cause like they've been a safe space for me and I've been a safe space for them. And like, I'm like, oh, it doesn't have to be so overly complicated, dramatic, like.
No, and I think too, like what I will say is a lot of my guy friends are very successful. And I think that helped me in getting clarity on my relationship because my ex is not successful. And that was an insecurity for him. I think he has the capacity, just like anyone else, to be successful in the future if he chooses to be. I'm not going to put that on him. But I think that having success also changes men and how they behave. And so I think because a lot of my guy friends are successful and some of them are famous, they run into the issue of not being able to have sincere relationships with people. So I think they're like, again, it's like, well, she's a sincere person and I value the way her mind works. So I want to do this. That doesn't mean that when they go on tour and they're sleeping with a girl in every city or whatever, that's not, like, I don't get that version of them. And if they were doing anything detrimental to another woman, I would have an issue with it. But like, I think there's also the duality of like who they are when they're with their boys and who they are when we're having conversations. And I think that that's okay. I don't but those friendships and all of those men being like, this guy was already punching up. And not only was he punching up, but then he started trying to pull you down to where he's at because he's not happy. And you already know that this is not your path. Yeah. This can't be what happens. And it's like, hearing it from a woman and hearing it from a man, hearing different. My male friends break down his behaviors gives me a sense of clarity that hearing it from my female friends just doesn't. Yeah. And that doesn't mean I don't value my girlfriends. I love my girlfriends. But there's something about having my like reform fuckboy influencer guy friend be like, hey girl, like
you're being an idiot.
Not only are you being an idiot, but this man's never gonna move on from you anyway. So what are you even worried about? And I'm like, yeah, you're right. And it just like, it helps. It helps.
No, it does. It's like, this is why I'm saying is like, it is so important to have those types of friendships in your life because there are some things that like my girlfriends, they're just going to feed my Delulu. I love them. I love them for it.
Sometimes we do.
I love them so much for it, but like, they're just going to tell me sometimes what I want to hear. But I do think, you know, there comes a point, I do this with my friends as well, where I'm like, okay, I'm not just going to keep telling you what you want to hear. Like, I'm going to give you the hard truth because I think that's, you know, a bad friend. Like, your good friends will tell you, I've once said, like, your good friends will tell you what you want to hear. Your best friends will tell you what you need to hear. And so, like, to my best friends, I'm like, we're going to sit down. We're going to come back to earth. We're going to come back. Oh, yeah.
Some of my girlfriends were like, okay, bitch. So sit down and I'm going to drag you and then we're going to get on the same page. And I'm like, just tell me he's going to love me forever. And they're like, first of all, you know that already. But second of all, it doesn't matter because he's not treating you in a way that you deserve to be treated. My girlfriends will drag me. So I'm grateful for them too. But yeah, there's just something about my male friends really being able to break down the nuance of certain behaviors. And for me, like I'm the type of person where if I can understand psychologically what's going on, I take it less personal.
Yeah.
And hearing it from a man helps me like separate my experience from my value.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, it absolutely does. And it's a great perspective to have. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah. So now back to the conversation of music. We keep like, no, and this is what I'm saying. I'm like, guys, I didn't even prep any questions or anything for this episode because I was like, we're just gonna shoot the shit. Like, this is how our conversations go. But, you know, talking to me about the music, I know all of your music is very heavy inspired by your own experiences, your traumas, obviously now your last relationship, especially like, you know, what do you want fans to get out of it and like hear from your voice and your story? Like, what is kind of the message that you want to send to them?
I think I'm still working on the message by just working through the emotion. And I think by the end of it, I mean, the message for anything I do is like triumph at the end of it, right? But I don't know that some of it I even have a message intention. I think I just, for the first time in my adult life, have had my heart broken, and I want to be honest about that, because I'm always like casually dating or whatever, but I don't take anybody seriously. And so having poured my heart and soul into this person and their family and the betterment of them, and then having them disappoint me multiple times now, I'm just going to feel, and then you can just feel with me. And by the end of it, I think we'll both feel seen and validated and sure that this is not all the universe has to offer us.
Yeah, no, exactly. And do you, is there a song that you're particularly excited about, or,
Yeah, of course. Every single one I write, I'm like, this is the best one. But there is one song about me killing him and burying him in Georgia that I really am into. Well, there's that one. And then so before he dated me, he had dated a girl who had like a moment on TikTok with a country song. And I had someone had sent me an interview of her a while ago, and like all of her songs, because she only dated him for like 2.5 months, so she doesn't know him at all of her songs are like about how he broke her heart and how amazing he is, and like all of these things that are not real, but she was like 22 at the time, and he did the love bombing and he screwed her over. Shocker. And anyway, everything that she's writing is about it's all about how he hurt her, right? And I cannot wait to meet her, because I cannot wait to validate her experience. But also I had seen an interview, and she had brought up a picture of him in the interview where it was like, he's not that hot. And I actually wrote a song about that. That is, when he came back into my life, he was like, well, send me the music you've been working on. I purposely didn't send him that song. But now that he doesn't know it exists. And now that he's disrespected me twice, let the fucking chopper sing. So I'm excited about that song as well. That song is, it's mean. But you know what? Don't fuck over good people. And this won't happen. Like,
this is the song that you played for me a little bit of, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm so excited for that one.
Yeah. That one and the one about murdering him, I think, are my favorites right now.
Do we need to unpack that in therapy?
Well, I'm an Aries, so I think like Kanye says, I fantasize about killing you. I think he hurt me. And I think I was like, wouldn't it be fun if I just fucking drug his ass behind a horse until he became unconscious, and then I buried him in the red clay, and he just had to like slowly not be able to breathe anymore? I wouldn't do that, I don't think. He's hurt a lot of women though. I mean, the poor singer girl, I'm like, when I saw the interview of her, I was like, golly, he fucked her over.
Did you after this, I'm going to have to see a picture of this man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I need to see the canvas.
Well,
from which
you're not going to be, I'm not, you know what? I loved him very much, and I was very, very attracted to him. So at the end of the day, like regardless of, I don't even want to shame the way another person looks. I think he's a handsome person. And I think he's very fit. And I think the only thing that makes him ugly is how he treated me. I won't even like pretend that he's like this hideous person. He's not.
Yeah.
But I think the monster on his back makes him very ugly.
She redeemed herself, guys. She can be nice.
Well, I mean, I loved him. So I think it's kind of stupid when we like get on, like after we're done with the person and we're like, well, he had a little dick and he's hideous. Like, well, girl, you was fucking him for 2 years. So I'm not even going to sit there and say those things, because number one, they're not like, they don't serve a purpose. And number two, what does that say about me if that's how I actually viewed him?
Yeah.
He's not ugly. And he but that interviewer did say that he was ugly, and I thought it was funny. So I made a song about it.
That's fucking hilarious.
The lore is very deep. The
lore does go very,
one
very
of
deep.
These days when I meet her and we're able to connect and have conversation, then I'll start to use her name openly, and then it'll just kind of, everybody will put the pieces together.
Yeah.
But for right now, I'm keeping it.
Have you ever like
chill.
DM'd her or anything?
No. She's always out with all the people I hang out with. So I think I'm going to just let
it's just going to be cross paths at the right time.
And she's young and I'm like very mother. So I'm like, I'm just going to let her.
No, you are mother. How many times I respond to your stories and go, mother.
I think that's my son and I love her. And when the time is right, the universe will allow me space to really validate her and let her know that her experience is shared. And for all the karma she wasn't able to give him with her pop off on the internet, my songs are much different. And I will get him for all of us, every single one of us.
That was a scary look.
What did JoJo Siwa say? Karma's a bitch.
Dream guest on my podcast.
I like
Lou Ridley.
I don't like to, the highest vibrational thing is not to come for somebody's neck. And initially I wasn't going to, but he came back into my life and then disrespected me even harder. And then I was like, okay, that's it.
Fuck the energy.
I can't, you know what, whatever happens, maybe it'll cause an ego death and maybe he'll grow as a person. I don't know.
That's giving him more credit, I think.
I'm just trying to wish for the best because I did.
Hope for the best. Was it hope for the best, prepare for the worst?
Literally, I did love him. I loved him very much, and I just think it's sort of a cheap shot to try and go after physical attributes and shit. Like,
what does that do? Who's that helping?
The problem with him isn't his body; it's his.
It's up here. Yeah,
it's up there. And the music will reflect that. And if you've ever been fucked over by a man, you will love this music.
I'm so excited.
Fucked over by a person, you will love this music.
So if you're able to share, if not, we can cut this part. Do you have any idea of when people can expect this music to come out? Or
2025.
2025.
Maybe the middle of 2025. I'd like to get some really good traction before I start putting it out. Mm-hmm. So we're doing some stuff with the project that just came out.
Yes.
And then we're going to double down on that and I'm going to start going.
It's on our 2025 bingo board, people.
Yeah.
Lou Ridley, new music.
Yes.
I'm so
good. It's the
for
first time I've ever done heartbreak music like this. Like I've done little stuff here and there, but this is like I don't even think there'll be a religious trauma song in here. I don't think there'll be anything but just my experience of heartbreak and coming out of it and learning to stand up for myself, because in the end of our second happening, I really stood up for myself and I was like, all right, the bitch is back. Because I was so weak. That's what I was saying earlier about not being strong and not showing up as strong. Like I was weak for this person. I allowed way too much stuff to happen.
Right.
And I think he got comfortable with that dynamic and he was like, oh, I've got this girl under control. And then when he did what he did, I was like, all right, that's
you hit your point.
I hit my point. I finally, praise God, hit my wall and I said, no, that's what we're not going to do.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Do you think, one last question before, because we've been yapping for a long time, but we didn't even really dive into the religious stuff. We could have like a 5-part episode on your lore, seriously. But, religious trauma, you and I, haven't talked much about my religious journey. I'm starting to re-explore my faith. And it's been a very peaceful but interesting journey because it took a long time for me to learn, like, it's not about the physical church. It's not about the people. It's about my relationship and what do I believe and like, what am I staying true to? And I think that's brought me a lot of comfort of recognizing like, the way Christianity is weaponized and all of these things that everybody talks about and throws around. But, with your story of religion, you mentioned you're not religious, but, how have you started to like re-explore your faith at all? Or like, what is, your kind of relationship currently with faith?
I believe in God, but I don't believe God to be gendered. I don't believe God to be, honestly, even comprehensible by the human mind, which means I just don't subscribe to organized religion. I don't think that there's like a book where it's like, okay, well, here's how you do it. I think that God is just light. And so source. And so as long as people's faith doesn't impede on other human beings' ability to thrive and live and have healthcare and those things, I don't really care what anybody believes in. I think it's all great. But I think you got to be like 6 different ways to stupid to think that God in all of their knowledge and knowingness would ever want other human beings to suffer and then place other human beings above them. Like that's, even in the Bible, it's like God's like the prostitutes, everybody. But then socially, those are a lot of the things that Christians condemn. And that's where you lose me is like, if you're condemning anybody else, you don't understand God very well. I'm off it. That's when you lose me. I don't think that anyone on this earth has the ability to point their finger at another human being and feel above them or like they have more of an understanding of something than the other person.
Yeah.
I don't have an issue with God. I have an issue with man's interpretation of God.
I fucking mic drop. Like, seriously. Do you think there's something that, through learning yourself or, what do you think is something that kind of helped you unpack your trauma and kind of work through it and come to these conclusions? And like, has that just come from getting to know yourself or do you think there's something else that you would attribute it to?
I don't have unbelievable religious trauma. Like it's not, I grew up Southern Baptist and stuff, but like my parents weren't shoving it down people, my throat.
Yeah.
But I think I observed a lot because I was in the church more than I would have liked to be. But no, I just think over time, when I lived in LA, I did a lot on Skid Row. I worked with Mark Leda from Soft White Underbelly, and we tried to help a lot of people. And I worked a lot in like recovery and homelessness and, prostitution and all of these things. And I think in getting to know those people, I'm like, God is not, I just had a realization that God is I'm God, you're God, we're all God, we're made in his image, and it's our job to go out and be God. And we lose it by being like, it's over here, it's separate from us, and we need to like listen to these rules that this fucking guy in a mega church who has people flying around in pyrotechnics is telling us to do. Like, no, being God is you see someone struggling and you help them without recording yourself, without making it about you. That's how you become God. And in the moments where I was given the opportunity to help people and save their lives and get them off the street and get them away from an abusive pimp or whatever it is, like for me, I was like, this feels like I'm God right now.
Right.
Like it's being channeled, not that I'm personally God, but more so that my brain is open and I'm a conduit for what God would want me to do.
Yeah.
And that was when my epiphany was like, well, it makes no sense for me to go back and read a book that says gay people are bad because I like gay people. So
I love the gays.
I love everybody, even my ex. I love him to death. I love you.
Lou.
Call me. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Don't make me fight you.
I'm exhausted. You're good. Maybe after some therapy. More immersive, though.
Maybe a lobotomy.
Maybe after some EMDR, we can.
That would be a fun girl, like a little girl night.
A little girl's lobotomy?
Yeah. Girl date.
Ooh, I love it.
You go get like espresso martinis after.
You know how many men on earth would probably be so happy if I got a lobotomy? Just based on my TikTok comments. When you were saying, do I get hate earlier? I really don't, but I really do. But I just don't retain any of it because it's always coming from men that I would never take a second look at. But I think a lot of them would be pleased if I got a lobotomy.
Yeah, I think I gave my guy friend a scare the other day because we were at a coffee shop working and he was like, do you need anything? I go, a lobotomy would be nice. And just like the look of horror on his face, he was like, I don't know if I should be concerned or not. But it's just like a fun little joke, you know?
Just a chill thing. And like,
Casual
do you even
Tuesday.
get a lobotomy anymore? So it's just like,
I feel like somewhere illegally they definitely do it. Maybe.
Have you researched this?
No, but now I kind of want to.
You're not getting a lobotomy. I'm not doing this with you. I can't. You're going to be drooling while we're sitting here. Your podcast is just going to be you breathing into the microphone. You can't.
Some people would be freaks and be into that. I don't know.
Honestly, they would. And I'm going to start selling my feet pics again. Because when I met my ex, he was like, don't do that anymore. That's horrible. But like, how will I pay my bills? So...
She got him covered today.
I do.
Not for free in this economy.
Not for free.
Not in this.
Not in this economy.
We're unwell if you guys can't tell. It's fine. We're fine. But lobotomies and jokes aside, thank you for being here and sharing your energy and who you are. And for people who, if this is their first introduction to you, where can they find your music, your socials? Like,
Everything is Lou Ridley. So that's how you find it. I'm sure you'll put it link in bio right here. Everything is Lou Ridley X, actually. But
she was
whatever.
a liar. She just lied just now.
You'll find it. You'll figure it out. You know how to use the internet. You're watching a podcast.
She'll be tagged on the podcast page too.
She will. She will.
She will absolutely be. But thank you for being here and joining me. And apologies that Rocco got a little too excited.
It was so exciting.
He just was he's just a baby.
He's just really small and tiny.
He just was very excited. He also loved your energy, apparently. A little too much, I think.
We were besties. That was crazy.
That was hilarious. But that's all for us on this week of Not the Girl Next Door. Like I said, go listen to Lou, her music, her everything. We're obsessed with her. We adore her. Follow her. Kay, thanks. And if you don't already follow the podcast on Instagram, I don't know why you wouldn't at this point. That's kind of dumb. But like, it's at Not the Girl Next Door podcast. Leave us a 5-star review wherever you are listening. And I will see you guys next week for another episode. Bye for now.
Bye. Love you.
Say it back.
Say it back, please.